the last corner now. You are about to see Nigel Mansell become world champion of 1992 as Brundle goes off. Mansell finishes and he's world champion.
Must have had a real go then, and there's still a car in front of them.
They'll both go out. Senna, Mansell was destined not to finish the Grand Prix, and Mansell is furious. Down to the last corner in Australia for the last Grand Prix of 1992, and certainly the most exciting. Schumacher is going to win. No, he's not. Berger backs off as he crosses the line, and he wins the Australian Grand Prix by 0.7 of a second. Unbelievable.
Yes, it was unbelievable. Nigel Mansell finally winning the World Championship, but once again failing to win the final race of the year in Adelaide. What a fabulous finish to the season. It was a great season with some tremendous highlights. Well, hello everyone and welcome once again to Nine's Wide World of Sports coverage of Formula One Grand Prix racing. And today we start the 1993 season with the South African Grand Prix from Kyalami. With me as usual, is our resident champion, Alan Jones. AJ, you're on a high. What a great drive this afternoon down in Launceston at Symonds Plains and in Tasmania. Two big wins in the heats driving the Ford Falcon.
Yeah, it's great. I think the new formula's proven to be really successful. I mean, the crowds love the big V8s, and today they had 20-odd thousand, which I think is the biggest single day of sporting event in Tasmania's history or something. So it bodes well, really, for the rest of the year. It's great. It's been good racing.
There was a bit of biffo, AJ, and a few dollars have changed hands. There was a fine picked up along the way.
A little bit of a misunderstanding coming out of the hairpin, but we've resolved that, and I'm $1,000 lighter for it, but, you know, you will get that.
Hey, great to see you back on the podium and back in the winner's circle. OK, let's have a look at the drivers and teams and the packages that have been put together in the off-season. There's some new faces in some new places as we bring you up to date with the top teams in Formula One as they'll line up tonight. And we start with the sport's #1 team, Williams. After months of deliberation, French ace Alain Prost steps into motor racing's best seat. The former three-time world champ is regarded as Formula One's shrewdest tactician. Joining Prost, another of the sport's illustrious names, Hill, Damon, son of former great Graham Hill. The young up-and-comer probably knows more about the new FW15 than anyone. Damon has tested the new Anglo-French rocket over hundreds of practice kilometres. Williams, brand new, still the team to chase. McLaren, for so long the yardstick of the sport, the professional top dog, is a mere puppy to the team we once looked at in awe. It's gambling on the Ford V8s as well as a new-look driving force. Michael Andretti, the American IndyCar champion, follows his famous father Mario into Formula One. The question, just how quickly can he adjust to the European style of racing? Beside Andretti, the talented Finn Mika Hakkinen. Very fast with Lotus last year and very keen to run with the pole sitters this year. McLaren boss Ron Dennis has another ace up his sleeve. Ayrton Senna is still on the books to drive if he so desires. Ferrari, after two of the most disappointing seasons ever, the most famous of the teams has vowed to come back with a vengeance. The greatest of Formula One designers, John Barnard, has promised more magic. Also along for the season's ride, as team consultant, everybody's Maranello hero, Niki Lauda. Austria's #1, Gerhard Berger, left McLaren to sit once again in the chassis of the prancing horse. Big things are expected. His teammate, Jean Alesi, has not lived up to early promise. However, there have been glimpses of brilliance. Perhaps the new car can give Alesi a springboard to the podium. Benetton, the flagship for Ford last year and the biggest improver in '92, should prove a real threat in '93. The chassis handles all circuits well. Its speed's more than competitive. Michael Schumacher put the interest back into Formula One last season. The sensational German was always on the pace. With that experience tucked under his helmet, Schumacher will be tough this year. New team member Riccardo Prix, who starts his 17th Grand Prix season. Prix left the Plum second seat at Williams. The veteran has stated loud and clear that he is not at Benetton to make up the numbers. Finally, the only new team to break into Formula One is the Swiss-based Mercedes-backed Sauber equipped. Peter Sauber made his name running his own sports cars. Success led to full Mercedes work status in 1988. Then back-to-back World Sports Car Championships in 89 and 90 opened the door to Formula One. This entry turns back the memory clocks to the halcyon days of the sleek silver German races. Driving Sauber, Karl Wendlinger, a youngster in the mould of Schumacher. Lack of quality machinery appears to have held the German back. Let's hope the Sauber allows the talent to shine. JJ Leto fills the other seat. Leto, a protege to the great Keke Rosberg, looked like a world beater in the smaller capacity formulas. However, after stints with Onyx and Dallara, this drive would be the chance he has waited for.
Amazing shot of those disc brakes lighting up there. And interesting to note, AJ, looking at the top teams, that's really how they've filled the grid. But of course, Grand Prix racing is just not top teams. It's a lot of teams, a lot of little teams that don't have the budgets and don't have the chances. But this year, to me, it looks like they've evened out a little.
Well, I think in as far as that the teams that we haven't really seen up the front in the past are a little bit closer now, yes, for sure. Sauber is an interesting new addition because really it's Mercedes, and being typical cunning Germans, they're saying, well, okay, if it wins we're going to say it's Mercedes, and if it loses it's going to be Sauber. But I think they will be right up there. It'll take them no time at all to be very competitive because they have enormous resources available to them, and I think they will come through. And they've got two very good young talented drivers.
Yeah, and just waiting for the chance to be able to sort of exploit that talent.
Oh yeah, well Wendlinger I think is an enormous talent. He was in the Mercedes team with Schumacher, and actually at the time he was in with him, he was quicker. I just don't think he's had the equipment up to this point to prove his ability. But this year we'll see.
Okay, well, you've had a look at the top teams. We've talked about some of the other teams that make up the grid. But for today's race, the qualifying session was pretty sensational, and Farron Hotham's put a package together to bring you up to date with what happened at Kyalami.
Frenchman Alain Prost went out determined to draw first blood, and he did in practice. Saturday in Kyalami was Prost's, the Williams ahead of Ayrton Senna. The second and final shootout, and Senna went out first. The V8 Ford-powered McLaren into overdrive. Senna's time was quick, but not fast enough, going a tenth of a second better. Alain Prost, tonight's pole sitter. Kyalami hasn't been as lucky for some. Damon Hill wasn't playing any computer games when he left the track during practice. Hill knows his task tonight is difficult.
We've got two very aggressive, competitive people on the front row, and I've got Michael Schumacher alongside me, so there's going to be quite a bit of argy-bargy, I think, at the start of the race.
Damon Hill wears his father's colours. The famous Graham died when Damon was 15.
I think he'd be quite pleased to see me up there on the grid. I'd probably have to keep him out of the way, actually. He'd probably be wanting to get in there and do things himself.
That'd be for sure. Okay, well, the grid positions, you can see Alain Prost in the Williams on pole with a 15.696. Not all that far in front of Ayrton Senna in the new McLaren, Michael Schumacher in the Benetton. Damon Hill, fantastic result for his first-time effort in the Williams. John Alesi in the Ferrari, and JJ Leto in that Sauber we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Riccardo Patrese, Blundell in the Ligier, good result for him. Michael Andretti, first Grand Prix showing for him in the McLaren. Karl Wendlinger in the Sauber, Alio in the Larousse, and Martin Brundle brings up 12th position in the Ligier Renault.
Quite an exciting lineup tonight. Well, a very exciting lineup for us, and two gentlemen that need no introduction from us here on the floor. Of course, Nigel Mansell, the current world champion in Formula One. Mario Andretti, a former world champion, watching his son Michael go around in the McLaren for the first time. I know both men have spent a lot of time in aeroplanes travelling over. They're at the beautiful Marriott Hotel at Surfers Paradise. And if you've never had a look at that hotel yet, make sure you do when you get there. It's one of the most beautiful hotels we've had the pleasure to be involved with in our motor racing time here at Channel 9. So we welcome aboard from the Marriott, Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti. Fantastic fellas. I know you're very, very tired coming all of the way over here, and it's great to have you here.
Thanks. Nice to be with you.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, welcome Nigel and Mario to Australia again, and it's great to have you here. I really mean that. It's, I think you're going to bring something to the Indy race at surface which will give it the big kick up the backside, and it's long needed.
Nigel, for you to sit here and watch a Formula One round the first time for the year, difficult?
I haven't really thought about it until you just asked the question. I mean, I think it is going to be a little bit different, but I'm just intrigued. I'm sort of jet-lagged anyway, but after watching Alan do such a great job this afternoon, I'm not so sure we'll have those tactics in our race this coming week, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, but I'm just trying to get into it now.
Does the grid surprise you looking at the way qualifying's gone?
I think the biggest surprise is how well Ayrton's done and the McLaren team over the winter, because having driven FW14 last year, I know FW15 was a good 12% aerodynamically better, and I'm surprised they sort of haven't got at least a second or so quicker than the other cars. So from that point of view, I think it's very, very good, and I think the race will be very interesting for the first 5 laps, and then after that we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nigel. I'm not peeing in your pocket, but I really do believe that if you're in the car, I would like to be able to think you'd be about a second quicker than what that car is at the moment, because it is a good package, and I don't believe McLaren have actually made up that much groundwork over the off-season. So there you go.
Yeah, I think the incredible thing is that we know that the McLaren hasn't got the best engine from the Ford point of view, so I think they're 30 to 40 horsepower down on what the Benetton's got, so they've certainly made a jump over Benetton. But, I mean, equally, the Renault engine has probably got about 30 horsepower, maybe a little bit more than what we had when we finished last year. So I think that's the most impressive thing, is how close Ayrton is. And I think what will be really interesting is if he gets a good start and Schumacher gets a good start and, you know, Alan's sitting in 3rd place, I think we could have a real interesting race.
Mario, a strange moment for you too. You're watching your son race. You've been racing together for so long now, the Indy cars, as teammates, and now to watch him on the other side of the planet via television from Australia.
Well, I'm like this, you know, obviously. I'm very anxious, and I've been talking with Michael. I spoke with him right after the warm-up this morning, and he's not really where he wants to be yet. Obviously, he's not totally comfortable, but you know, yesterday he had an engine blow during qualifying. I don't know how much he would have improved. I would assume he would have improved somewhat. And of course, starting 9th, he's somewhat worried because the new Kyalami is really, I would say, impossible to pass. Maybe I think Nigel could probably confirm or deny that, but the way it looks, it's going to be really tough to try to come through the field. So, as I said, he thinks it's going to be a long day, but his focus is to try to finish the race, try to keep it together, and just get that experience, get that feel of the car, so he can start, you know, just getting more out of the car and out of himself together with the car.
Mario, it's interesting to see that Damon's got his father's colours on his helmet, and of course Michael's got your famous colours, and I've noticed just watching on TV, then he had the little American flag. He's added that to the bottom of it. I mean, that's great, I reckon, and Andretti's actually have had a fairly good run at Kyalami. You won there in the Ferrari. So, you know, and I know also doing Formula One is a total different kettle of fish. It's not just simply about driving the car. You've got to learn the European way of doing things, and it's a different sort of approach to a certain degree than what he's been used to, and I guess he has to get used to that as well as simply driving the car.
Well, true is, you know, once you have the experience, you know, each particular race has its own quirks, things to look for and whatever. So he has to find that, obviously, and you can only find that through experience. So that's why he's really anxious to get the race under his belt and just to see just what he has to do, what he needs to do to be able to maintain, you know, that not. I don't say the concentration, but just to maintain that pace, the kind of pace that you need to be competitive, stay competitive. And also, the other factor is, which is going to be a factor for everyone, is to be able to see just how to treat these tires. The new narrow rear tires obviously going to give up much quicker. And now what do? Do you save the tires, or do you go flat out and maybe make 2 stops? You know, these are all things that obviously going to be answered in a few hours, but they're all what's going through these guys' minds.
Well, I can see, Mario, you'll be riding with Michael and Nigel. I know that you'll take a lot of interest in this race, watching it from Australia. We really do appreciate your company, and we'll be talking to you throughout the evening. And once again, thanks for making the effort. I know it's been a hard grind to get here, and we wish you both the best. And, of course, we'll be joining you in Surfers Paradise next week for the IndyCar race. OK, we'll take a break, come back with all the action from the Formula One's first race of the year, Kyalami, South Africa. Stay with us, Australia. Watching us all around of Australia, what an exciting time. The first Formula One race of the year coming out of South Africa. Well, Alan, you know, it's a time we're all a bit apprehensive. We've talked about Williams and Prost perhaps not being as quick as they should. I think we're excited at the fact that McLaren and Senna are now competitive. Schumacher, well, he's going to get better right throughout the year, and there's a new car coming there. The Sauber going so well. It really does augur well for the year.
Yeah, well, in one respect, I'm glad that Nigel's left, because I think that it's going to bunch it up a little bit, and as we've seen by the lap times, there's nothing in it. And as he said, I think that if Senna does a good start or Schumacher does a good start, we could be in for a good 3 or 4 car battle, so it's going to make it interesting.
The Sauber, when you said that it won't take them that long to catch up, I mean, is that the Mercedes technology you're talking about, or has this package sort of been ongoing now for a couple of years? We've heard the rumours for so long.
Well, Sauber have gained an enormous amount of experience through racing sports car, but, you know, I would like to be able to think that it's Mercedes technology, which they have an abundance of. They have this dreadful habit of being able to sort of come into whatever they choose and dominate it. I mean, they dominated touring car racing in Germany last year. They went into GT racing and dominated that, and now they're literally feeling the water in Formula One through Sauber. And I believe within certainly next year, or if not the year after, we'll see a full-blown Mercedes car right up at the front, if not beforehand, in the Sauber.
Well, the cars are just about ready now to get out on the track. In fact, they are out on the warm-up lap. We thank Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti for their time tonight, and they'll be with us for a little while up there at the Marriott Hotel in Surfers Paradise. Well, Alan, you know, this is the time, I guess, the first race of the year. There'll be plenty of nerves, plenty of twitchiness, and particularly at a circuit like Kyalami. I had my first look at the track in a live situation last year with the 500cc bikes. Pretty frightening on bikes. It must be just as scary in a car.
Yeah, well, it's an extremely difficult circuit to pass on. It's just sort of one corner after the other. It makes it a little bit frustrating. We have got new tyres, we have new configurations, so there'll be a lot of guys out there just sort of feeling the water to a certain degree. I would probably say Williams and Benetton have probably done more testing than just about anybody else. McLaren have done a fabulous job to come up with a brand new car, given the fact that they haven't had a great deal of time. And they've done a great effort. It was just a shame that Michael had that engine problem yesterday. He probably would have been a bit further up, but they've both done a great job.
This track, of course, has changed in layout since you raced there.
Oh, yeah, totally different. I'm sure when Mario and raced there and when I raced there, it was a really fast circuit. Now it's considerably more twisty and a lot more difficult to pass on.
The interesting thing that I noticed, well, you see them racing up the hill on this circuit. It doesn't look all that steep on television, but yet it is quite a climb.
Yeah, well, it's the original hill, and it is actually quite steep, and how you come off that right-hander is fairly important, because it dictates the speed, obviously, where you see them coming now. So it's very important to get off that corner pretty well.
So as you can see now, the car's making their way onto the grid. And really it does. I know that we're tingling in here with the excitement. We've got Formula One, of course, tonight, and we've got the Indy cars next weekend, and the 500cc bikes coming up. It really is a great time here on Nine Sports. 72 laps of this circuit, very demanding on the drivers. And as you can see, 4.261 kilometres, around 306.792 kilometres in race distance. Well, the man, of course, who calls all the Grand Prix action right around the world, the voice of Formula One, Murray Walker, and alongside him, as always, is James Hunt.
Starting the season. Away they go. Senna's got a superb start. Schumacher comes up. Damon Hill is into third position as they go into the first left corner. And Senna's done it. Ayrton Senna has got ahead. And look at that. A complete spin by Alain Prost. He's overdone it. And Damon Hill spins there. Prost goes through. Andretti's been left on the start. There he is. And there's two more stuck at the back. Michael Andretti is still on the grid. One of the Larousses is still on the grid. And it looks to me as though, well, there we are. Eric Comas is stuck on the grid, and so is Andrea De Cesaris. Well, so it looks as though the entry is down to 23 already. Alain Prost goes through. Well, Ayrton Senna, an absolutely magnificent start. The Brazilian is right back in the groove. Look at that. And Schumacher is in second position with Alain Prost in third place, and in fourth position and fifth position it's the two Saubers. JJ Leto is in fourth place. Carl Wendlinger, his teammate, is in fifth place, and already the South African Grand Prix is turning out to be a stunner. Now look at this. Here's a replay of the start, and you see Alain Prost makes a good start, but not nearly as good as Senna.
Yes, and then the mistake here by Damon Hill getting sideways, and that really hurt Alain Prost, because and Prost behind the Benetton. A poor start by Prost, and Hill gets going again. But Senna taking full advantage of having Prost behind Schumacher's Benetton, and Prost seems to be losing ground.
Well, this is a quite incredible start, because now Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, which was not going nearly as well as the Ford-powered McLarens during the practice session, and Senna leads Schumacher at the end of the first lap by 1.7 seconds, with Alain Prost third. The two Saubers, as I told you, of Leto and Wendlinger, there they go through the picture. Alesi is in sixth position. Mark Blundell, look for him, there he is behind Alesi. Behind him is Martin Brundle. So the two British drivers in the French Ligier team, which has Renault engines, are 7th and 8th. Riccardo Patrese is 9th. And we've got news on Michael Andretti from Jonathan Palmer in the pit lane.
Apparently the problem was that Andretti lost the throttle, this fly-by-wire throttle. He lost hydraulic pressure when the engine revs got low, and that lost him the throttle. He's now got it and he's underway.
Well, that's good news anyway. A poor start for Michael Andretti's Grand Prix year. His father, Mario, is watching him in Australia in Surfers Paradise with Barry Sheen and Nigel Mansell, because Mario and Michael will be driving in the first Indy race next season. But look at this, the Ligiers. There is Alesi. And the Saubers, the black Saubers with concept by Mercedes-Benz on the side of them. That's Wendlinger. And Carl Wendlinger, who is in fifth position ahead of Alesi, Blundell, Brundle and Patrese, is headed by JJ Leto there in fourth position. This is very interesting indeed, because JJ Leto has been driving the Dallara for the last 2 years, and that was a very poor handling motor car. He's been looking for a good one. Now he's got it, starts 6th on the grid. And Damon Hill is in 12th position on this, the third lap in the 72-lap South African Grand Prix, with Ayrton Senna, I would imagine, scarcely believing his luck that Prost was delayed by that Damon Hill spin. Damon under terrific pressure here. And Ayrton Senna on lap 3 of his... I can't say he's returned to Grand Prix racing because he hasn't actually been away, but we weren't expecting to see him, and he's 2.3 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher.
Yes, and I would think that Senna is probably already paying attention to looking after his tyres. He was... nobody's quite sure whether they're going to have to stop or not for tyres. There's not enough knowledge about these new tyres yet in hot conditions. And Senna certainly was hoping to try and get through the race, and of course having Prost with his bad start back in third place gives Senna the chance, the opportunity to take it a bit easy.
And out goes the Ivan Capelli. Well, he had terrible luck with Ferrari, and it looks as though his luck is not continuing now that he's moved to the Jordan team, because the Hart Power Jordan is out of the race. We are on lap 3. Ayrton Senna is leading Schumacher by 2.4 seconds. Prost is the fastest man on the course at the moment. He's just gone round in 1 minute 21.19. That's about 3 seconds off the lap record. And JJ Leto, Wendlinger, 4th and 5th. There they are. The all-black cars with hardly any sponsorship on them at all. And they are powered by Ilmor engines. Now, there's the leader, and you can see how close Michael Schumacher is to him. Michael Schumacher, who won a Grand Prix in his first full season last year when he won the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa. Now, is the gap coming down? The gap is coming down because Schumacher is closing on Senna. It's now 1.9 seconds. And it's a good time to point out to you again that, as ever, but for a very different reason, tyres are going to be a major factor in this Grand Prix, because the governing body obliged the teams to use smaller tyres this year in the hope of reducing the speed of the cars. The tyres are 3 inches narrower and therefore give less grip. But and there you see the Jordan. That is the Jordan, and you can see it's very badly battered indeed. Well, Capelli out, and I'm just looking to see where Rubens Barrichello is. He's in 14th position at the moment, and on the 5th lap there's the leader. Now you can see there's an enormous gap between, in 2nd position, Michael Schumacher and Prost. Prost is 3.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and I really did not expect that. Now he's starting to close up. There's the Frenchman. Through goes Ayrton Senna to complete another lap, and the gap between him and Michael Schumacher is now pretty static. It's about 2 seconds. Alain Prost in 3rd place, and he's gone faster again, so Prost has got the bit between his teeth. He's fighting back. They call him the Professor. He's the smoothest driver on the track, always has been, and he's very, very quick as well.
Yes, I think Prost has been, again, like Senna, nursing his tyres a little bit there, because there's no doubt he can go a lot faster than this. He did 1:18 in the warm-up. He's just put up fastest lap of the race at 1:21.1, and I think he's just brought the tyres in gently to try and make them last, also probably to try and do it without a stop, and now he'll slowly start to turn up the heat.
All the drivers in this race, of course, are using Goodyear tyres, and they're all using the same compound. I won't go into all the details of it, but they're using the same type of tyre in terms of compound hardness. That's the B compound. It's almost certain that every team will stop once. Drivers like Gerhard Berger, who are hard on tyres, may stop more than once. Now, there is Prost in 3rd position. As you can see from the caption, he's fastest. And as you can see, he is starting to gain on Michael Schumacher. Prost. Now, let's see. Well, he's visibly gaining on him, it seems to me. But now Ayrton Senna has put in a quick lap. It was the fastest at the time, but Prost has gone even quicker. The gap between... And I think it's a Minardi. It may well be Fabrizio Barbazza. We need to have a look at the actual car itself. But anyway, there is Alain Prost. JJ Leto is missing. And Andretti comes into the pits. Michael Andretti. And Jonathan Palmer, news.
Leto is in the pits. There seems to be a problem. They're going to take the engine. They're stopping the engine. They're going to take the cover off, I think. We don't know what's going on, but he's clearly out of the race in practical terms.
What a pity, because Leto was driving an absolutely superb race in 4th position. And there is Michael Andretti. Well, I said earlier on, when he had that awful start and was left on the grid, that looked like a very quick end to after his first Grand Prix. I was wrong then because he got away. Now, I'm guessing, I really am guessing, but one of the new things about the McLaren is not only that it has staggered panels on the side of the body, which are assisting the airflow, and you'll only see them on Senna's car now, but they also have the most sophisticated electronics of any car. And I know the team were worried about reliability, and I also know that Jonathan Palmer, as Andretti retires from his first Grand Prix, Jonathan Palmer knows the Sauber story.
Yes, not engine at all, I'm afraid, but gearbox. They have had problems with that gearbox in testing. It looks like it stopped them now.
Lap 8 of 74, and Senna leads Schumacher, and you can see Alain Prost catching the German. The Austrian Wendlinger in the Sauber is now in 4th position. Up into 5th place has come Alesi in the Ferrari. Up into 6th place has come Mark Blundell in the Ligier. And 7th is Martin Brundle. So, where is Damon Hill? The answer is down in 11th place after his spin. Johnny Herbert, the other British driver, is in 14th position. And I'm just trying to check as I talk to you where Derek Warwick is. I'll come back with that in a minute. Meantime, you look down from the helicopter and there are several drivers, and Michael Andretti is with Jonathan Palmer.
Great work, BBC, Michael. Okay, I'm with Michael. Come with me as soon as you can. Just come out here a bit.
Well, we were with Jonathan Palmer, but meantime, it's still Ayrton Senna. Senna leading, and now Jonathan has got Michael Andretti.
Michael, this looks bitterly disappointing. Your car's got tyre marks all the way down the side and a wheel off. What happened?
Well, first off, when I put the clutch in at the start, and he almost hit the guy in front of him, but then I hit him, and it was like a chain reaction type thing.
Michael, a great shame. Thanks very much.
You rejoin us on lap 8 of the South African Grand Prix with Ayrton Senna leading Schumacher by mere 1.3 seconds. Alain Prost is 1.8 seconds behind Schumacher.
Yes, and a big disappointment for Michael Andretti. It hasn't been a tremendously happy start to his Grand Prix career, but he's impressed everybody here with his attitude and his confidence, but he was very disappointed with his qualifying. He was exactly 3 seconds slower than Ayrton Senna, and the times were finally achieved, and he naturally was unhappy with that, but felt that there's plenty more to come. And he did have some trouble on Saturday in the second qualifying session with the active suspension on his car. It wasn't behaving exactly right. So, but I'm quite sure he'll be bouncing back.
But look at this. This is a terrific scrap, led by Gerhard Berger's Ferrari in 9th position, followed by Philippe Alliot's Larousse, and Damon Hill in the Williams trying to get past both of them. Behind him is Zanardi. Then in 13th place is Rubens Barrichello and Johnny Herbert in the Lotus.
And the leading 3 now all together. Senna will not be rattled by this situation. He knows full well that without a mistake by him, there is really no chance, or no real chance, for Schumacher to get past, and he's protecting him from Prost as well.
But you remember what I said about the excitement being back in Grand Prix racing? Well, here are the 6 world champions, 3 from Ayrton Senna, 3 from Alain Prost, as Prost challenges Schumacher for 2nd position. Schumacher will have nothing of it, and of course all this is helping Ayrton Senna, because while Schumacher and Prost are fighting each other and occupying the whole of the course, Ayrton Senna, with a clear track in front of him, is able to take the best possible racing line without worrying about Schumacher, who's just under a second in terms of time behind him. You can see the visual difference. But it's a McLaren that we certainly didn't expect to be leading a Grand Prix this early in the year.
morning. Prix, Ayrton Senna continues to lead for Michael Schumacher over Alain Prost, Carl Wendlinger, Jean Alesi and Marc Blundell. Well, Mario Andretti, obviously a great disappointment, not only for you, but obviously your son. Through no fault of his own, couldn't get off the grid and then obviously involved in an accident. So things can only get better from here, I guess.
Yeah, I hope so. Obviously, you know, he was hoping to be able to do the entire race at least. But I guess he's going to have to wait until Brazil. But what can I say? I don't know what really happened in that accident. They didn't really show it. But again, the fact is he's out of the race and just going to have to resume everything in Brazil.
Yeah, it is a shame because, you know, you can test until the cows come home, but there's nothing like a race to really sort of get into the groove of things.
Well, that's really what he wanted. You know, he desperately wanted to get a race under his belt. And as I said, you know, this wasn't going to be the time, I guess.
Okay, well, things can only get better. Nigel, what are your thoughts so far?
Well, I think it was a great disappointment, obviously, for Michael, but I think hindsight, looking at the race, really the race should have been restarted with sort of having 3 stalled cars at the start. I think it would have been better. Obviously, with Ayrton getting a great start, we have a race on our hands, but you can see that the Williams is just sitting there waiting. I think Alain's got a lot in hand.
Yeah, I mean, he does look to be sort of doing it easy, doesn't he? He looks to be sitting back waiting.
And the power coming out onto the main pit straight, you'll see him now close up and coming out now. He just tried to go on the outside, but you can see, look at the power now just coming out.
Yeah, he's
behind.
having a go, look.
Exactly, he's just sitting there and I think he's made it.
Not around the outside, though.
Yeah.
Oh, he got him.
Yeah, no, it's the engine's working real well, and of course without the Honda engine in there, it's no question the most powerful engine out there. He'll probably have conservatively 40 to 50 horsepower more than Ayrton, but now it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few laps.
I don't think he'll get Ayrton around the outside as easy, will he?
No, I think Ayrton might move across a little bit quicker.
Hey, all right, let's go back to Murray and enjoy the race.
The official works engine, and McLaren's only have a customer engine, which is reputed to be some 20 horsepower down. And that will worry Senna. He will not want Prost right on his tail through the hairpin. So watch Senna now when they're together. He'll be trying to put a bit of space between himself and the Williams every time they reach the last corner, and Prost is really pressing.
Indeed he is. The two rivals who have fought each other in the same type of car for McLaren, in different kinds when Prost was racing for Ferrari and Senna was racing for McLaren, are up front again. It's just like old times. Let's hope it doesn't end like some of their races have in old times before. But Senna, Prost and Schumacher dominate the South African Grand Prix ahead of Carl Wendlinger, who is still fourth but dropping back slightly in the Sauber. Alesi, Blundell and Brundle. But stay with this. See, Senna is noticeably faster out of that corner. The McLaren people have been working very, very hard on the active suspension of their car, which is controlled by this complicated computer system. Incidentally, I know there have been rumours in the UK that because of Prost speaking out of turn about the governing body last year, there is Wendlinger in the pits, and that means to say that Jean Alesi goes up to 4th position, Marc Blundell goes up to 5th place, Brundle goes to 6th. Both the British drivers are in the top 6, and Hill is still 11th.
Now, it's interesting that the leaders are lapping some 2 seconds per lap slower than they were about half a dozen laps ago. Now, what I'm trying to work out and having some difficulty with is whether that's because Senna is just taking it easy and driving defensively and therefore not interested in a lap time, or whether in fact the tyres have deteriorated a bit in their performance. Now, Prost is well placed this time. He's making an attack, but Senna's getting in very quickly into the hairpin. Prost is well placed. He's going to make an attack.
He is attacking, but Senna is cool, calm and collected as ever, has got exactly the right position on the track to block Alain Prost. There's nothing unfair or illegal about that. Senna is leading the race. He is entitled to go wherever he wants to on the track, provided he doesn't indulge in blatant weaving to keep the man behind, and he is certainly not doing that. You've only got to make your car half an inch wider and it's enough. But all the time Alain Prost is pressing, and all the time Ayrton Senna knows that Prost has a power advantage from the V10 Renault engine. And all the time Prost knows that right behind him is Michael Schumacher. What a race, top three. Jonathan Palmer, a quick update please on Wendlinger, because it's all action at the front.
Well, a bit more disappointment for Sauber, I'm afraid. That was a 10-second penalty that Wendlinger came in for. He was judged to have had made a jump start.
Thank you again. Well, that's a fairly new rule, but Wendlinger got away a bit too well. And the rule is that you are shown a flag, you have to come in, stop for 10 seconds and accelerate away again. He's now in 8th position, is Carl Wendlinger, behind Riccardo Patresi's Benetton, and the top 8 as you watch the race for the lead. And Ayrton Senna goes through to complete his 15th lap. Senna leads Prost. Schumacher is 3rd. Alesi is 4th. And Prost is having another go.
Interesting to watch Senna's technique at that final hairpin as they come around to complete the lap. At the moment, he's coming into it with just enough lead over Prost that he's prepared to go in really quickly into the corner and try and do the whole corner quickly. Now, if Prost gets a bit closer to him as they come in under braking, it may be that Senna will brake a bit more, go into the corner more slowly than usual, and then hit the power unexpectedly early. And that is a technique for getting the jump on another driver. He'll be working every trick he can think of, and he's got a few.
And the fastest man on the track thus far is Alain Prost. But there's hardly anything in it, as you can see. Alain Prost has made the fastest lap of the race so far. And it's Senna leading Prost, leading Schumacher, the first three. Alesi's 4th. Blundell and Brundle are 5th and 6th. Riccardo Patrese is in 7th place. Wendlinger is 8th. Berger is 9th. Alliot is 10th. And Alain Prost is trying so very, very hard to be not number 2, which he is now, both in number and on the track, but number 1.
Yes, and I think I'm beginning to get the impression that this 2 seconds a lap off their full speed pace that they're doing is because Senna is positioning himself tactically on the track, not interested in a fast lap time. And of course this is allowing Michael Schumacher to stay with the group, and Prost only has to position himself wrongly on the track, and Schumacher is going to gobble up the hole if he can. He's a little bit too far behind to attack at the moment, but he put his nose alongside Prost's rear wheel just now, and he'll certainly be looking for any sort of a mistake or opening.
I can hardly believe my eyes, because Ron Dennis, the head man of the McLaren organisation, only finalised his engine deal with Ford in December. And in that time, the new car has been designed and built to take the new engine, which, as James and I have both said, has got less horsepower than Benetton. And Prost goes for it. Senna moves across. Prost goes to the right. Prost was maybe trying to serve a dummy to Senna, in which case the Brazilian outthought him. We're on lap 17 now, and because Senna is adopting this deliberate ploy, as James has said, Schumacher is right up with them. But I'm saying I can hardly believe my eyes, because this McLaren, which has been produced after an enormous amount of work by everybody at the McLaren factory at Woking and their associates who do the tag electronics, is really doing the business. And if this doesn't persuade Senna to stay in Grand Prix racing, I would be very, very disappointed indeed.
I must say, the Williams looks very, very impressive. The power of the Renault, and that's Hill going off with Zanardi.
Well, Damon Hill's race finishes. Damon, of course, as I said, was under enormous pressure. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's been trying a little bit too hard to make up for that spin at the beginning of the race. Damon has had problems under pressure in the past, I remember in Formula 3000, but for whatever reason, maybe he was trying too hard to get... here's a replay. Now, there goes the Larousse, and as you can see, Damon Hill was already in front of Zanardi, and I do apologise if anybody thought I was saying anything against Hill, because it was clearly Zanardi trying to dive through on the inside of Damon's Williams, Zanardi in the Lotus, that caused the problem.
Indeed it was, but we weren't to know until we saw the replay, Murray. But Yes, that was a bit over-ambitious by Zanardi, and he locked his brake, and once the brake's locked, you lose braking effect, and he had nowhere to go but to slide into Hills Williams. Disappointing debut for Williams. As Prost gets inside Senna slams the door right across Prost's bows. But I was saying just before that incident, now we see from, I think, is this Prost's Williams? That's the view from Prost's car. And I must say, the Williams is looking extremely impressive in Prost's hand. It's got quite a big acceleration advantage over the McLaren and the Benetton. We saw it power its way past Schumacher earlier, and also the car looks very good out of corners. He's getting the power on very well and smoothly with Prost, and one would think that if he can get in front, he may go away. Certainly the race will speed up a lot. Whether Senna's got much a response for it, I don't know, but Prost is looking as if he will eventually get past. Williams seems to have enough power that I think Senna's going to be hard pushed to fend him off the rest of the race.
Gillette Sensor presents another great...
First of our Formula One races for this year's Drivers' Championship from the South African circuit. Kyle Army, 20 of 72 at Senna, Prost, Schumacher, all together there. Lacey, Blundell and Brundle. Well, Alan Jones, I don't know about being so impressive. I mean, it's a pretty tight struggle going out there.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, as I said to you when we were off camera, the only thing would be impressive that if he got past Senna and Pete off into the distance. I mean, that would be impressive. He's obviously enjoying an enormous car advantage and a horsepower advantage. Senna, obviously, you know, without any doubt the best driver in Grand Prix racing today, is just sort of guarding him and keeping him behind, and sort of, you see, look, Prost is having a little look there, but, you know, Senna's covering his ground, and he is dictating the pace, and Prost is having trouble getting past.
But as Nigel Mansell said earlier, if he does get past, it'll be interesting then to see what sort of gap he can open up on Senna.
Yeah, well, if he gets past, he should, I believe, go away by about half a second a lap. That's what I believe.
OK, comments from Alan Jones, our big winner today in the touring car races. 2 big rounds, if you saw that. And he's a pretty happy chap. He's sitting beside me. Let's go back to Murray and James.
Back in Grand Prix racing after a 2-year sports car stint with Peugeot, and he's driving the LaRousse Lamborghini. But let's stay with Alain Prost. Now we look down. Right up behind Prost. There's the first 3, all in the same picture. And there's only 8/10 of a second in time between Ayrton Senna leading and Alain Prost in second position. Prost has put up the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 20.701, and that is some 2.5 seconds outside Nigel Mansell's 1992 lap record. But I remind you, the cars this year have narrower tyres, narrower wings, less downforce, but on the other hand, more engine power, more sophisticated electronics. Look at this is terrific stuff. Past Damon Hill's broken Williams, past Zanardi's broken Lotus, and now Prost is going for it. Right up alongside Ayrton Senna, who just moves across casually, blocks Alain Prost. And look at that. 2 British drivers, 5th and 6th in the Ligier. Now, this is tremendously exciting and encouraging too. Watch Senna, Prost and Schumacher, and I will tell you that the reconstituted Ligier team, as Prost is now on the inside, this is his opportunity. Alain Prost leads the Grand Prix very briefly, only to lose the lead immediately again to Ayrton Senna. A magnificent scrap between the 2 best drivers in the race, and Schumacher's got nothing to be ashamed of either.
Yes, and he was playing his opportunist role then, looking for something as Prost tries again. And Senna, of course, had the inside line for the left-hander of that S-bend out, that double corner, and that was crucial. So Senna has been given notice by Prost very firmly of what he's up against, and Schumacher is pressing
And they're coming up on Luca Badoer, the 92 Formula 3000 European champion, in the second Lola Ferrari. Now, Badoer is far less experienced in Grand Prix. Indeed, this is his first Grand Prix than Alboreto is. And it's just conceivable that Badoer might not be able to let all three of them through in one move. He may not be watching his mirrors as closely as he should do. We're soon going to... Oh, he's into the pits. That's taken care of it. Luca Badoer pits as the leaders come through to complete lap 22.
Yes, and behind this group of three is Prost nibbling away at Senna's heels again. Behind these three, Jean Alesi in the Ferrari is fending off a strenuous attack from Marc Blundell in the Ligier, who is supported by Martin Brundle, who's right behind him. They're in 5th and 6th place and trying to find a way around Alesi's Ferrari. Alesi's pretty good at keeping a wide car, though.
I'm glad I'm not the producer, because he's got a real dilemma now to stay with the front three with the lead maybe changing, or to move to the second three, the 4th, 5th and 6th battle between Alesi, Blundell and Brundle. Well, we're with the leaders, and Michael Schumacher, who is one of the youngest drivers in the race, only 24 years old, is getting invaluable experience now because of the steady pace of Ayrton Senna, who's controlling the race from the front, making it very difficult for Prost to get past him, or making it impossible for Prost to get past him. It's enabling Schumacher to hold on to, and that's, well, as you can see, it's one of the Minardis, but whether it's Barbazza or Christian Fittipaldi, I don't know. I can't see the number, I can't see the driver. I guess it's more likely to be Fabrizio Barbazza, who is, yes, it is Fabrizio Barbazza, who is out of the race incident.
And Prost having another go. Prost is alongside Senna, nose in front, and Prost is through. So Alain Prost takes the lead in the South African Grand Prix. Now, let's see what speed he's got to get away. I anticipate this race will speed up quite a bit now. We'll see how much more speed Senna can find.
Well, just as a datum point, the lap speeds were around 122.2 before, and now Schumacher goes through. Now, has Senna got a problem? It's most unlike the Brazilian to yield voluntarily, first to Prost and then to Schumacher. Well, what possible answer is that Senna is going to come into the pits, I presume, for tyres. But we don't know for sure. There's 6 retirements, incidentally. Yes, we have news that it's definitely for tyres. Ayrton Senna coming in.
Yes, and lots of activity clearing up that accident there from the Hill and Zanardi. So, Ayrton Senna on his way in, and this will be very crucial. And so is Schumacher. So both of them in. Schumacher and Senna. Big pressure on the pit crews now.
This could change the race, because whoever is out first is going to have a big advantage. Senna goes out in 6.8 seconds. And I've missed a big... Yes, Schumacher behind him. So Senna has regained the second place that he temporarily held on that lap. Now, we believe that Alain Prost is coming in. This is the 25th lap. And you can see that Leto in the Sauber is going again.
Yes, and that was nearly 7 seconds for McLaren, according to the official clock that was being captioned there in the corner. And whilst I'd call that a pretty good pit stop, McLaren were down to around about 5 seconds last year, towards the end of last season, and they may be a bit disappointed with that, because if Prost is going for tyres, Williams could beat that and get Prost out ahead of Senna.
And Martin Brundle is missing. Riccardo Patrese has gone through his 6th position now. This is it. This is what could change the course of the race if the Williams team make a mess of Alain Prost's pit stop. It's happened in the past. You remember Nigel Mansell had all sorts of problems. Wheel came off. But it's happened with him with Ferrari too. That's a bit slow. That's 7.6 seconds now. Is Alain Prost going to exit the pit lane before Ayrton Senna and Schumacher arrive? Yes. Yes. Alain Prost Prost goes through, and there is the Lola behind him. Now that's going to hold up Senna and Schumacher. It's still Prost, Senna and Schumacher, and all three of the lead drivers on lap 26 out of 72 have changed tyres. I doubt that they'll have to change again with Schumacher now. Hello, who's that? It's Zanardi. Sandro Zanardi, who you saw have a real coming together in his Lotus with Damon Hill's Williams.
Lap 26, we have Alain Prost still leading from Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, John Alesi, Blundell and Brundle, and the two Ligiers. Well, Mario Andretti, the Formula One cars with the narrower tyres, obviously pit stops are going to play a more important role. I guess you're used to more pit stops because in Indianapolis type racing or IndyCar racing, pit stops are there to go, and you run a similar type of tyre vis-a-vis width. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it's pretty much predictable as far as the tires. Looks like conceivably, I know that as the laps run, obviously you're getting lighter on fuel, and from that standpoint, it's not as tough on the tires. But it looks to me like they might make another stop, especially if these three guys are going to keep up the battle they've been doing since the beginning.
In Indy racing, like Formula One with the wider tyres, they can sort of go for it as such. With the Indy cars having the narrower tyres, do you have to sort of conserve the tyres and look after them and really sort of control the oversteer to get life out of them in a normal Indy race?
Well, in the Indy cars, you know you're going to have to be coming in for fuel in less than 100 miles. So obviously, you're not going to conserve the tires because you automatically changing tires anyway. So again, you just go for it. But I'll correct you on the fact that the Formula One cars now have actually the tires. I think the print is maybe even a little bit narrower than the Indy car. Definitely. Well, the Indy car is.
Nigel, okay, we've seen Alain get to the front. He really now, by all intents and purposes, should pull away, shouldn't he?
Well, no, he's just taking it easy. I'd just like to echo what Mario said. The Formula One tyres now, which they're racing on, are in fact narrower than the IndyCar tyres will be racing on next Sunday by 3 inches. The plan area of the tyre in Formula One has been reduced by 6 inches from last year to this year. So we will actually have 3 inches more plan area of the rear tyre than what they're racing on now.
What about aerodynamics, wing-wise? Obviously, would they be carrying more wing, or is it what's the story there?
Yes, it's a high downforce circuit, South Africa, and for me now the race is over. You could see quite correctly, as you were saying, the big power advantage that Alan's got over Ayrton, and now he's just sitting there and taking it easy, probably conserving his tyres, because I feel there's probably going to be another tyre stop, certainly for the McLaren. And maybe now with Alan just going around sort of fairly slowly and just managing the car, he might not be able to. He might be able to go to the whole race now and without stopping again.
The McLaren seems to be moving around a little bit more, particularly at the rear than the Williams. So obviously that's going to work the rear tyre a hell of a lot more.
Sure.
All right, Nigel, thank you very much. Let's go back now to the coverage with Murray and James in South Africa.
It's a turn up for the book because Rubens Barrichello is the youngest driver in the race. He's Brazilian. He's driving the Jordan with its brand new V10 Hart engine, and he's the ex-British Formula 3 champion. And if any team needs a break in Grand Prix racing, it's the South African-backed Jordan team, because they had it. Out goes the LaRousse of Philippe Alliot, and that makes the 10th retirement, because he joins Babazza, Zanardi, Damon Hill, Michael Andretti and Ivan Capelli. But I was saying, if any team needs a break, it's Jordan after a dreadful 1992.
That's right, and that accident that befell Capelli's car earlier in the race looked like a very, very heavy accident, looked like a very badly damaged car. Capelli we saw walk away from it, so hopefully he's all right. And a new fastest lap for Alain Prost, And Prost now starting to pull away. He's 6.5 seconds clear of Ayrton Senna. And Schumacher still right behind Senna.
What I find fascinating about all this, James, is that Alain Prost is well known for doing no more than he has to do. He's come back in racing after being out for a year. He won't want to show the Williams-Renault hand to McLaren Ford too much, and I'm wondering if he's going to continue to try and pull away and build up an ideal cushion of about 20 seconds compared with the 6 seconds that he's got now, or whether he will just stay where he is.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure he'll build himself a cushion, because you need that. These cars are very complicated. If small things, anything small goes wrong with it, towards the end of the race, he'll want that cushion, and that is the professional thing to do. And I should think he'd certainly go for 20 seconds at least before he said that was enough and comfortable enough. It may be still that it's going to be marginal to get to the end of the race on tyres, so he'll be keen as soon as possible, probably when he gets to about 10 seconds away, just to take it easy on the tyres and not over push the tyres, not spin the wheels too much or overheat them. And he can do that and still probably find a way to pull away. The Williams superiority, I'm afraid it's not much use trying to hide it from the others. It's plain for all to see. There's the battle for second. There was.
Sean Lacey in the pits for tyres. He was in 4th position. And while he's getting out, let me tell you that there are 9 different constructors in the first 10 places, and that is very healthy for Formula One. And this is healthy too. Senna fighting Schumacher for 2nd place. Alain Prost is clearing off. He's just gone round in 1 minute 19.89. That's another fastest lap, and he is 8 seconds ahead of this battle for 2nd place. But it's Williams leading, McLaren 2nd, Benetton 3rd, Benetton 4th, Ferrari 5th, Ligier 6th, Sauber 7th, Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan is in 8th position, 9th is Fittipaldi in the Minardi, 10th is Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. That's how different it is on the Grand Prix in South Africa, the first of the year. And now it looks as though things are starting to settle down, and we're not yet at half distance. Half distance is 36 laps, and we're on lap 32 now, with Alain Prost nearly 10 seconds ahead of this battle between Senna and Schumacher. So the Renault engine is underlying the dominance that it established in 1992 over the Ford V8, and for that matter, the Ford V8 in the McLaren is showing the way to the Ford V8 in the Benetton of Michael Schumacher. But Ayrton Senna would appear now to be settling for 2nd position, over 10.5 seconds behind Alain Prost. And the question is, can the charging young German Michael Schumacher, who carries the number 5 this year, get ahead of the Brazilian? And a word about Kyle Army, because this is not the old Kyle Army. It's a completely new circuit which was used for the first time in 1991 after the expenditure of a great deal of money, which has produced a magnificent track with superb facilities in the form of pits, garages, grandstands, all the things you want. And that's a Ferrari there. And it's the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. And Gerhard Berger joins the retirees, probably not to... It's Alesi. My apologies. Alesi out of the race. Well, I was going to say if it was Berger, he wouldn't be too unhappy because he's had so many problems with the active suspension. And there, thank you very much, is Gerhard Berger.
Yes, the two Ferraris have been running different active suspension systems this weekend as Prost goes by to lap Berger, and Berger's got the newer and supposedly better system on, but it hasn't worked properly all weekend. It's been leaking and they haven't been able to get the hydraulic pressure that they need for it to work properly. But that's the one they're going to concentrate on developing, and they feel they've done some useful test mileage at least.
Well, we're with This is Ayrton Senna now, and you can, I don't know whether you can see Prost ahead, but while I'm talking about Prost, I have to tell those of you who don't already know that he's actually driving under a cloud at the moment, because on account of speaking out, against the governing body during the winter, he's facing a disciplinary body of the World Council on the 18th of this month, and it's not inconceivable that he will be suspended. If he was suspended, in my opinion, it would be a tragic reflection on Formula One, especially now that Senna is back, because we need the racing of the kind that Senna and Prost have been giving us this afternoon. Senna has dropped back, admittedly, but remember that this McLaren is only in its initial stages. There is an enormous amount of development potential there, particularly with the electronics. And if McLaren got the slightly more powerful engine from Ford that Schumacher behind Senetton has got, they could be up with the Williams team. And it would be a great pity if Prost wasn't driving.
It would indeed, and I certainly agree with that. If the World Council deem that Prost's behaviour is worthy of punishment, then I sincerely hope that they fine him or find some other way than to suspend him from racing. I think that would be counterproductive for Grand Prix racing. Senna got just a little bit of breathing space ahead of Schumacher, but they're a long, long way behind Prost.
Well, I'm down in the pits now with Ivan Capelli, who looks in relatively good shape after that enormous accident that he had in the first lap or two of the race. Ivan, can you tell us what happened?
Just that in corner 11, before just the pit entrance, the car understeered quite a lot, and then I was over the dirty part of the circuit. The car starts to slide, and then I made a big spin in that corner, and unfortunately I was really going very hard against the wall.
What sort of speed do you think you were doing at the time? There looked to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's fifth gear flat, so it's above over 200, I think, kilometers per hour.
Ivan, thank you.
And as Jonathan hands back to me, the car that stops in front of me to retire is Carl Wendlinger's Sauber, so he becomes the 9th retirement of the 26 starters for the South African Grand Prix. The mice are getting at the machinery a bit. The runners are being depleted, but the top three are pressing on, and particularly the second and third, and you're looking at them now. Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. There are 4 Germans standing in front of me with enormous German flags who are nearly going berserk every time Michael Schumacher passes in their efforts to attract his attention by waving the German flag at him. I just hope for his sake that they don't attract his attention, because the corner after the start and finish straight is a very quick one indeed. And here he is, Michael Schumacher in the blue and white helmet and in the yellow and green Benetton Ford, still pushing. And Ayrton Senna, of course, looking for World Championship points. We don't know whether he is going to be racing in Grand Prix after this one. It depends on all sorts of negotiations, not entirely disassociated with money, I might say. But assuming that he is, he wants every World Championship point that he could get. 3 times World Champion already. He would get 6 points for the second position that he's holding now. And Alain Prost would get 10 points for the position he's holding now. But we are now on the half-distance lap with 9 retirements out of the 26 starters, with Prost constantly increasing his lead, and he's just put up another fastest lap, 1 minute 19.729. And there is the battle, the continuing battle between Senna and Schumacher, crossing the line, and they are now 16 and a half seconds behind Alain Prost, lapping some 7/10, 8/10 of a second slower than the Frenchman in the lead.
Watching us all around Australia, lap 37 of 72, it's Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Patrese, Bundle, and now Fittipaldi moving into the top points. We take you back now to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
There was a remote chance of rain, which I hope doesn't hit the circuit, but if it does, it's certainly going to spice things up, because everybody would have to come in and put on a set of wet Goodyears that have this asymmetrical tread pattern, which makes it a pretty exciting tyre to look at, as this is exciting too. No change, and Schumacher is pushing. If you're in that position, James, and you've got dirty air billowing about in front of you and a very difficult course to pass on, what has to be your plan?
Well, it's extremely tiring and stressful to drive right up to somebody's exhaust. And for this reason, one tends to make one's attacks in sort of bursts. But Schumacher is young and strong, and he seems to be consistently trying to parry Senna. Of course, he's buoyed by the fact that he feels he's got a chance of forcing a mistake and getting through, and he's looked like he might get through a couple of times. So,
Damon, that looked a pretty unfortunate debut for you on your first Grand Prix, but particularly unlucky to be taken out pretty clearly, as far as we could see, by Zanardi. What happened then, first of all?
Well, first of all, I put myself in a situation where I was in the field mixing it, and of course those sort of things can happen. So unfortunately, Zanardi just lost his braking and just hit me from behind, and that put me out.
Now let's just go back to the first lap. The first or second corner already had a bit of a half spin. Was that how it seemed to you?
Well, I think it was a 360 actually, but you know, I mean, that's a mistake, and that's my inexperience, I suppose, but you know, pretty pissed off with myself.
And after that, how was the car going?
Yeah, it was good, but it's impossible to overtake. You know, I was quicker than the people in front, but I just couldn't get any. There's not enough of a straight to really get a toe, so you just have to bide your time. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, look, you know, this is impossible to overtake here. I'm just going to have to stick with it and wait for Adio to make a mistake or something. And then I got hit from behind.
Very hard luck, Damon. Thanks for your time.
Well, I think I'm going to be very sick after the South African Grand Prix. I have eaten so much humble pie already here about how well McLaren are doing after I'd said I didn't think they were going to do very well. And now Christian Fittipaldi, who I was tipping in the Minardi team to be further back because of his comparative inexperience, is in fact in 6th position. And the race order now on this, the 19th lap, of course, is still Prost, Senna and Schumacher.
And 7 seconds behind Christopher Fittipaldi. In 7th place is Johnny Herbert, who's been quietly picking up places.
Johnny Herbert goes out. Once again, the unfortunate Englishman has to retire. And once again, and this has happened so many times in 1992, he will be greeted in the pit lane. He was in 7th place. He'll be greeted in the pit lane by Jonathan Palmer for an interview. And we'll have to learn how to keep Jonathan and Johnny Herbert away. But now, on lap 40 in this 72-lap South African Grand Prix, Alain Prost is leading Ayrton Senna by 18 seconds. Senna is just a car's length or so ahead of Schumacher. Up into 4th place has come Riccardo Patrese. So the Benettons are 3rd and 4th. And Patrese, who says he still doesn't really know the car after being with Williams for so long, is up into that 4th place. Marc Blundell in the Ligier Renault is 5th. Fittipaldi is in 6th position. Johnny Herbert. Schumacher out. That's Michael Schumacher out of the race.
Well, he spun. It looks as if he stalled the engine. The up steering wheel off, so end of the day's work for Michael Schumacher.
Yes, because if you're pushed... Hello, here, this is what happened. Schumacher trying to take Ayrton Senna. Now, let's see if the Brazilian moved across. Indeed, he did. There's going to be a big argument about this. This, if you look at it, is reminiscent of the Senna and Prost coming together at the opening of the Japanese Grand Prix. And did they touch? Here's a replay. Yes, they did. Well, it is... I always hate to apportion blame because only the people in the cockpit knew what happened. But from your point of view, James, would you say that there was any blame to either driver?
Well, I think Schumacher could be justified in feeling that he'd got enough inside Senna, maybe to have made Senna make room. But the problem is, you know who you're dealing with, and it was pretty predictable that Ayrton Senna would stick to his line and just come into the corner. Schumacher was trying to retract his move as it happened, and he just got his front wheel biffed by Senna's rear. Senna would claim, therefore, that he was the one who was ahead, and they'll argue it for a long time. But the fact of the matter is, it was a racing accident, and it's really the nature of the circuit, because quite honestly, if you're going to get past anybody here in that situation, it is inevitably a risk. Schumacher took the risk, and it didn't pay off this time.
Which means to say, of course, that his teammate Riccardo Patrese moves up into third position in his first race for the Benetton Ford team, as Ayrton Senna closes up on his ex-teammate Gerhard Berger, who is in sixth position in the Ferrari, and he's about to be lapped by the second place man Ayrton Senna. And I can't see Gerhard making it difficult for Ayrton to go through, because he knows he's miles an hour faster. Indeed, he didn't make it difficult for Ayrton Senna to go through. So the sixth place man has now been lapped by the first and second place men, who are, of course, on lap 42, Alain Prost leading Ayrton Senna. There is the Frenchman, and there's a 22.5 second gap now. So much for my theory that he might back off and hide his hand from McLaren. With Patrese in third position. In fourth position, it's Blundell. Fifth is Fittipaldi, and sixth is Gerhard Berger.
Yes, and a really marvellous race for Mark Blundell. He's up to fourth place. He qualified well in the Ligier, and in eighth place. And his first Grand Prix since 1991, when he was in the less competitive Brabham team compared to the Ligier team. And this is really a tremendous opportunity for... And is that Schumacher returning, or is it Patrese? Patrese in for tyres. There's a little gaggle with Prost right behind him. He'll be taking that. He'll be pretty careful with them, because you can see they're all looking at each other and busy with their own race. And he's got a 24.5 second lead, so he's not in any hurry at all. He just wants to get through safely.
He passes Derek Warwick, who is now in eighth position. And with all these retirements, perhaps a quick review on what the positions are would help. Well, there you can see the top six: Prost, Senna, Patrese, Blundell. Christian Fittipaldi moves up into fifth position. He's ahead of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. And in sixth position it is Martin Brundle. Seventh is Alboreto. Eighth is Derek Warwick. JJ Leto has got going again in the Sauber and is in ninth position. Prost, well, he's threading his way through the traffic now. He's got a nice rhythm, 1 minute 22.880, and he's lapping very consistently, lap after lap in that time. And what a wonderfully triumphant return to Grand Prix racing after having been out since the Australian Grand Prix in 1991, when he was fired by Ferrari for criticising the Ferrari top management. Derek Warwick loses it, and almost loses it. The footwork, and incidentally, it's last year's car, to be fair to Derek. And it stepped sideways momentarily and allowed Eric Comas to go through. Eric Comas in the Larousse Lamborghini is in 11th position. And sure enough, we have Palmer and Herbert together again. Jonathan?
Johnny, I can't quite believe this, and I'm sure you can't either. Yet another very strong showing, up to 7th for the Lotus, and it stopped. What happened?
It cut out, basically. I'm not sure. As I accelerated out, it just cut out. It would keep going at very, very low rev. Every time you actually put on the throttle, it just wouldn't want to go, then eventually it died anyway. But it's nice to see you in 93.
Thank you very much. And how was the car going anyway?
Not terribly well. We've had a few problems for some reason since we've left England. We've lost some of the grip that we had when we was back home. We haven't quite worked that out why for some reason, because I was so optimistic we'd have a good race here, but the car just hasn't quite been up to it. But well, we're going to work on it. I know the grip's there. I've just got to find it.
Well, try and stay away from me for a few races, all right?
I should try, yeah, definitely.
Well, nothing can put Johnny Herbert down. He's ever cheerful. He's always got a smile on his face. And there you can see those rain clouds I was talking about as Michele Alboreto and Eric Comas scrap.
And after Patrese car stop now, Mark Blundell is only 2.5 seconds behind him. So Blundell now pursuing Patrese for third place.
And the race order is Prost 23 seconds ahead of Senna. Patrese third, Blundell is in fourth position, Fittipaldi is fifth, Berger is sixth, and both Fittipaldi and Berger have been lapped. Seventh is Martin Brundle in the second Ligier. In seventh position is Michele Alboreto. In ninth position is Derek Warwick. 10th is Leto, 11th is Comas. So although you just saw Eric Comas, and there he is in the Larousse Lamborghini, number 20, past Michele Alboreto, he is actually behind him as far as race distance is concerned, because Alboreto in the Lola is in 8th place. And there you see the battle between Mark Blundell in the Ligier Renault, with behind him JJ Leto back in the race. And Blundell is chasing the Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese in 4th place. Oh, it's Michael Schumacher. He's Oh, it's Patrese and Schumacher is with...
No, I've lost him, I think. Michael? No, too late.
Sorry, I was getting confused. I had a message, and Schumacher was with Jonathan Palmer and has now left him.
It's still Price, Senna, Patrese, Blundell, Fittipaldi and Berger. So those 4th, 5th and 6th spots are starting to change around a little bit. AJ, I want to get your comment on this. I'm getting a little tired in motor racing these days where they're talking about being over-aggressive on the track and closing doors and all this sort of nonsense. I mean, if you're a racing car driver, surely you're there to race. If somebody wants to pass you, you're going to try and block them the best way you can.
Well, my understanding of the sport is it's your job to keep him behind, and it's his job to get past you. That's what it's all about. It's a moving game of chess. And oops-a-daisy, who we got going off there? Obviously, it must be Patrese. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to hire a driver that's going to move over and wave somebody through. I very much admire Senna because he's analytical, he thinks out very much, but also he's extremely aggressive. And every driver knows that if he wants to get past Senna, by Jove, he has to earn it.
Well, he's a racer.
Exactly, and that's what he gets paid the money for.
I mean, there's no one quicker through traffic than Senna. He'll take the risks.
Yep. There's old Riccardo. I think he's probably sort of wistfully looking back at the Williams camp saying, I wish I was back there.
Well, there you go, Riccardo Patrese. So both Benettons are out now. We'll take you back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Up into 4th place goes Fittipaldi, up into 5th place goes Berger, up into 6th position goes Martin Brundle. So Cyril Derouvre, the very wealthy Frenchman who bought the Ligier team from Guy Ligier himself over the winter, must be absolutely beside himself with excitement, because both his cars, both his English drivers are in the top 6, and Derouvre has been pilloried in France for having the effrontery to employ 2 English drivers in what has always traditionally been a 100% French team. And Mark Blundell is showing that Cyril made the right decision. 3rd position, but he is some...
Michael, that seemed to be a big incident with Senna. Can you tell us what happened?
I will talk to you later, not now, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much and goodbye, says Michael Schumacher, while Jonathan is desperately on everybody's behalf trying to talk to him. But as ever, Michael Schumacher is scrupulously polite, probably not all that cheerful, in view of the way he appeared to have been taken off by Senna, and I'm using my words very carefully indeed. But Alain Prost is now sailing away. It's lap 49. He's 30 seconds ahead of Senna. This is the battle for third.
And Derek Warwick has moved up into 8th place, having passed Michele Alboreto. So a steady drive from Derek in the old footwork car. There's a new car on the stocks, but it had rather an inauspicious start at Silverstone last Monday. Derek drove it, and after 2 laps the rear suspension broke, and he had an almighty accident going end over end. But fortunately he was all right, and still looking forward to getting the car built and strengthened up and getting some testing in the new car.
Now, this battle on the track between Blundell and Leto is not for places that matter. Mark Blundell is securely in 3rd place. JJ Leto, of course, in the Sauber, has rejoined the race and is down in 10th position. And at the moment, there are only 11 cars left out of the 26 who started. It's been a real race of attrition. And Alain Prost, on his 50th lap out of 72, looks like winning the South African Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna is 30 seconds behind him, and Senna is 41 seconds ahead of Blundell, with Fittipaldi in 4th place. Gerhard Berger is 5th, and only the top 3 are on the same lap. 6th is Mark Blundell. Then 2 laps behind the leaders is Derek Warwick, who is in 7th place. Michele Alboreto in the Lola, who is in 8th position. JJ Leto is in 9th place now, and Eric Comas is in 10th place. And that is Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, who drove for Peugeot in sports car racing for the last 2 years. It's not a deaf aid it's got in his ear. It is the earpiece from the pits to car radio system, which is still legal for 1993, but will not be legal in 1994, because there are enormous changes being made. Well, let's concentrate on Mark Blundell, who is driving an absolute stormer of a race. This is only his 15th Grand Prix, and he's only finished in the points once. Hardly his fault, because the Brabham team he was driving for before, for financial reasons, had got a very poor car. But this is the man, as we look now, Christian Fittipaldi in 4th position. And Christian is the nephew of the great Emerson Fittipaldi, double world champion, Indy 500 winner, USAC champion, the American Championship. And he's the son of ex-Grand Prix driver Wilson Fittipaldi. And I will be going to him in a state of contrition and apology after this race. He's in 4th position, and he's driving the new Minardi with the Ford V8 engine. Last year they used the Lamborghini engine, and they made what seems to have been for them a sensible decision to change to the Ford V8 to join Lotus and McLaren and Benetton using the Ford Cosworth engine. And he's one of the youngest drivers in the race. He's only 23, and it's only his 11th Grand Prix. And I remember when he scored his first point in Japan last year. That's a landmark for a Grand Prix driver. The first landmark is to finish in a Grand Prix, and the second is to score a point, and Fittipaldi did that in his first season by finishing in 6th position in Japan. Well, now he's in a better car, and he comes from a racing family. Extremely nice young man, got a very cool head on his young shoulders, and he's driving very sensibly indeed. And this race is great encouragement for the Ford Cosworth technicians. Now, here is Ayrton Senna, right up behind 7th place man, Derek Warwick, who is followed some way back by Michele Alboreto. So Senna is about to lap Warwick again, because he has lapped him before. Derek looks in his mirrors and moves across and lets Ayrton Senna through. And this is the Brazilian. You can just see a touch of his yellow and green Brazilian colours helmet in the wing mirror there. Senna goes through. Derek Warwick, who stands a chance of being in the points in this race, because I wouldn't be at all surprised if one of the drivers ahead of him has a problem and falls out of it. And if you'd said to Derek before this race began, I forecast that you will score in the South African Grand Prix in terms of points, he would quite vigorously have contested that statement, because he's in the old FA13 footwork Mugen car, And there is Leto going through the picture, followed by Mark Blundell, who is about to be lapped by Alain Prost, who is on his 53rd lap. So watch the 3 times world champion, Alain Prost, number 2. The man who's won more Grand Prix than anybody else in the history of Grand Prix racing. 44 of them so far. And why, you may say, did Damon Hill carry 0 as his number and Alain Prost carry number 2? The answer, of course, is that Nigel Mansell, who's probably, in fact, I believe, watching this race interestedly at Surfers Paradise, is the world champion of 1992, is sadly not racing in Formula 1 this year, and only the world champion can carry number 1. And when Prost was given a choice of whether he could be 2 or 0, he allegedly said, "Who wants to be a 0? I'll have 2, thank you very much." And judging from what happened to the unfortunate Damon Hill carrying the 0 today, Alain Prost may have been right. Well, he's lapped everybody except Ayrton Senna that is left in this South African Grand Prix. Last year's race was enormously processional, with Mansell leading Patrese and Patrese leading Senna, who finished in that order, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. There was a bit of a battle for 4th, 5th and 6th places. Alesi did very well there. In the end, it was Schumacher, Berger and Johnny Herbert who finished 4th, 5th and 6th last year. But Prost must just now be keeping his fingers crossed for reliability.
And a smoky Lamborghini there. And that's Eric Comas, and these cars have gone pretty well all weekend. Qualified well, he and Alio. But that can't last. He's been smoking for a few laps, in fact. But I should think he's losing oil, and that's got to blow up sooner or later.
Well, I hope he's not losing much oil, because if he is, and it's on the racing line, it's going to make things slightly difficult, to put it mildly, for the people who are still in the race.
Thursday on Sex.
Yes! Yes!
The do's and don'ts of faking it and fantasy phone calls.
This one looks like a particularly nice fantasy.
Watch Sex, the new series, Thursday, 9:30 on 9.
And that's an order.
Because we need to have a few finishers in this race. At the present moment, with Comas still running, there are 10 people. Prost, Senna, Blundell, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Fittipaldi, Berger and Brundle in 4th, 5th and 6th places. Those are the point scorers. Derek Warwick is 7th in the footwork. Alboreto battling round in the Lola Ferrari, which handles badly because the car has had virtually no testing, and they need to go back to Huntingdon and make some new parts for the rear suspension to get the balance right and get the aerodynamics right. But nevertheless, Michele Alboreto is battling on in 8th position, 2 laps down, as is JJ Leto, who is in 9th place. Comas is still 10th, 3 laps down, and those are the only runners left. So there are 16 retirements. Into the pits he comes, and I am sure to retire, in which case that will be just 9 of them left. We've got Capelli out, Michael Andretti out from his first Grand Prix, Damon Hill out as a result of that spin, Zanardi and Herbert out as the result of their coming together. Philippe Alliot is out in the Larousse, Jean Alesi out in the Ferrari, Wendlinger in the Sauber, Schumacher in the Benetton, Patrese in the Benetton, and now Eric Comas in the Larousse Lamborghini. Well, we expected it to be different in the South African Grand Prix this year, and that it has proved to be already. Now, fingers crossed, 9 cars left, and I didn't expect the attrition to be anything like this. It's the sort of thing that you expect at Monaco, but not here to that extent. The Prost still running steadily onwards. Well, at the moment, the 2 top drivers in Grand Prix racing, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, continue to run 1st and 2nd. But they're the only two on the same lap, because Marc Blundell in the Ligier Renault will probably be very happy to hold station. There's no point in him speeding up. He's a lap behind the other two. And to finish third in your first race for a new team would be a very significant achievement, particularly for a chap who's been out of Grand Prix racing for a full year. So the first three positions look frozen unless any of them have trouble. Fittipaldi is still in fourth place, and that's the highest he's ever been. That's in the Minardi. Gerhard Berger, by default, is in fifth position, and I don't mean that unkindly, because the Ferrari is probably handling as badly in the race as it did in practice. Harvey Postlethwaite, the team manager, told me this morning that they were marginally better than they had expected to be, but very marginal, he said. Martin Brundle is sixth, Eric Warwick is seventh, 2 laps behind. Michele Alboreto is still in eighth position, and JJ Leto is in ninth place, and the last runner, well done. You've just seen him passed again by Alain Prost that you're looking at, car number 2.
Yes, well, Prost has cruised on to a huge lead now, nearly 50 seconds, and he's still lapping in round about the 1 minute 20 second dead, just under some of the laps. In the late 119s, he's got a fastest lap of the race of 119.4, and I think he's keeping going at a comfortable speed. He's certainly not pushing, and the Williams is looking a lot more superior today in the race than it did in qualifying yesterday.
Well, if Alain Prost wins here, and I say if, because although he's now 50 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, you can never be sure in motor racing. So many times we've seen a secure leader on the last lap have to retire. But if Alain Prost wins this South African Grand Prix, it would be for the first time, because he won in 1986. You can see all those clouds over there. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's some rain, and Prost also won in 1988.
Yes, you can see those clouds were raining too in the distance. There's rain coming, so the storm clouds are around.
Well, in which case, if rain lands on the track, the 75% distance rule would apply. If the race is stopped when it has run more than 75% of the planned distance, which is 72 laps, the results would be declared at that point. And the 75% point was lap 54, and Prost is on lap 59, as is Ayrton Senna here. So if we have rain, and I sincerely hope that we do not, the race would, I'm pretty sure, just be stopped, not restarted, and the results declared as of the time that the race was stopped. So now, have a good look at the car when it passes. You'll see it's got some angled panels underneath the driver's head. Yeah, you just see them there. It's some sort of an aerodynamic tweak that McLaren have produced. They presumably kept it on the car because they've decided that it works. As into the pits comes Michele Alboreto. Oh my goodness, not another retirement, please. But from the way he's coming in, it looks as though he's coming in to stay, because if you're coming in with the intention of rejoining, you do not cruise in a leisurely fashion like that. They're going to change the tyres, I think, as the usual precaution. They do that anyway. No, they're not even going to bother to do that. So Michele Alboreto retires from the race, but in the meantime he's got in a good few laps of development of the car, which will help all the technicians at Huntingdon to know exactly what they've got to do to make the car quicker. Their problem is, will they be able to do it by Brazil, which is the second Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, let alone, well, maybe they might be able to do it for the European Grand Prix, which is at Donington on April the 11th. The first Grand Prix at Donington since 1938, and that will be something to see. But Lola have got a problem. Ayrton Senna would appear not to have, And now it's Prost, Senna, Blundell, the first three. Fourth is Fittipaldi. Fifth is Berger. Sixth is Brundle, Martin Brundle from King's Lynn. And so it would seem, oh my goodness, as I say that, out goes Martin Brundle in the Ligier. He's being pushed, so this race may well be finishing because there's no one left on the track. Mark Blundell passes his teammates, and Martin Brundle, who does seem to have all the bad luck in the teams that he drives for, because he had a run of bad luck in the Grand Prix of 1992 when he was driving for the Benetton team. And what's this? Well, Senna, I was about to throw a wobbly and say he looked to me to be going rather slow, and I'm hoping he wasn't the retirement, but he may well be going slower simply because he doesn't need to go any quicker. Alain Prost is on his 61st lap now. Brought them out from nearby Johannesburg. Ayrton Senna. Brazilian is 54 seconds behind Alain Prost now, and has very clearly decided that he's going to settle for 6 points for second place. And everybody in the McLaren team will be praying for reliability. That was their big problem in conceptual terms before the race began. The car is so new and so comparatively little tested, and it has such complicated systems that there were natural concerns about whether it would finish its first race. Michael Andretti didn't, but that was no fault of his. And Ayrton Senna cruises on into his 62nd lap, so there's another 10 to go. And Alain Prost goes on his victorious way. What does this mean as far as Williams and McLaren are concerned? Well, it would seem that the Williams FW15C, the new car, although the third version of it, so intense has been the development, has still got very much the edge over everything else. Last year it was Mansell and Patrese that were showing everybody the way. This year it's Prost. Damon Hill, I'm pretty sure, would have climbed his way up through the field had not he been nerfed by Zanardi. But the McLaren with the new car have driven a fine race. Ayrton Senna holding that second position and settling for second place. The Ligiers have done well because they're the only team with both cars in the top 6 places, and somebody preparing for... No, it's nobody preparing for a tyre stop. It's Gerhard Berger. Gerhard Berger will be coming in for tyres. And the significant point about that shot was that they were rain tyres, and off goes the Ferrari. This is Berger. This is Berger on car camera. The course is wet or getting slippery. Ferrari have got the message and are bringing Gerhard Berger in for rain tyres on lap 63 out of 72. Now, Alain Prost will be tiptoeing his way round the circuit. Is he going to just slow right down with a massive lead over Ayrton Senna and just drive within the limitations of the slick tyres that he's on now, with no tread pattern to cut through the film of water which is building up on the track and give him the grip that he needs? Or is he going to decide, with a 50-second lead, I can afford to come in and take on another set of tyres and play safe? I suspect the latter.
So do I. But it's only raining on one little bit of the circuit at the moment, I think, because if at all, and it's not, there's no rain here looking out of our window, and it may be that we just caught the edge of a shower. And looking around, I can't see the rain in the background there, and that's some distance away. And that was oil on the circuit. I think that may have been... it was a trail of oil there, possibly from the Lamborghini. The Larus Lamborghini when it went in. And, well, the circuit looks okay to me.
Well, there are 8 laps to go, and the man that you're looking at, Alain Prost, has got this 56-second lead now over Ayrton Senna, and can afford, frankly, either to come in for rain tires if he needs to, or to slow right down. He should know where the patch of oil is if he's hit it in the past, and that's Eric Comas's legacy to the South African Grand Prix, it would seem. Mark Blundell still in a secure third place ahead of Christian Fittipaldi. So it's Williams leading, McLaren second, Ligier third, Minardi fourth. The Ferrari of Gerhard Berger that we nearly went off the track and into the tire wall with just now is in fifth place. In sixth position, now that Martin Brundle has retired, it is Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick out of Grand Prix racing for 2 seasons, having driven for Jaguar and Peugeot. Well, as I said earlier on, if you'd forecast to Derek Warwick that he was going to finish in the points in last year's footwork, which was an overweight car, I think he would have been very surprised, to put it mildly. Incidentally, the new car, the new footwork car, has got a much lighter Mugen V10 engine. It's got all the tricky systems, active suspension, semi-automatic gearbox, traction control. But sadly, when Derek was testing it at very great speed, this is the Williams pit, Richard West on the left and Bradshaw on the right. Frank Williams sitting in his wheelchair just out of sight behind the Goodyear technician. And this is the tense time for the Williams garage, because their car is out in the lead, having shown its superiority in 1993 thus far that it enjoyed in 1992, as Ayrton Senna in second place closes up on Christian Fittipaldi in fourth position. And the Brazilian will be overjoyed if he stays there, and I hope he does, because if many more drop out, we're not going to have 6 cars finishing the race and scoring points. And now on lap 66, Prost, of course, Senna in second position, Blundell third, Fittipaldi fourth, Berger fifth, Warwick in sixth position, JJ Leto seventh, and that's it. 7 cars left. Martin Brundle out of the race. Alain Prost has made the fastest lap so far, 1 minute 19.492, and that compares with last year's lap record of 1 minute 17.5. So it's 1.9 seconds slower. But Prost has not been pressed at all since he took the lead from Ayrton Senna, and he's on those narrower tyres. He has less downforce. He's probably pacing himself very carefully indeed now, with the course being slippery in parts, and Ayrton Senna has now lapped Christian Fittipaldi, who is in fourth place in the Minardi, and I am delighted for Minardi. I'm just trying to... the last point they scored, of course, was the Japanese Grand Prix, which was Christian Fittipaldi's position for them. But this little Italian team is one of the typically sporting, smaller teams that is always struggling for enough funds to keep the team going. And it was to help them that, rightly or wrongly, and it's a matter of considerable debate, all these changes have been made this year to reduce the number of tyres the cars can use, to reduce the amount of practice they can have, to limit the use of the spare car, and also even greater changes next year, which are planned. I don't know whether it's going to happen, but the plan is to ban all the complicated electronics, which some people say drive the car rather than the driver. And Minardi desperately need all the money they can get, and will more than welcome the prize money that they look like getting for fourth position from Christian Fittipaldi, as we watch the doughty Austrian Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Well, his perseverance looks like paying off. He is in fifth position. Car number 28 in his 132nd Grand Prix. Gerhard Berger went to Ferrari because he was so overshadowed by Ayrton Senna that he couldn't see himself doing well in the McLaren team. And he therefore went to Ferrari, and he chose just the right time to do it, the Belgian Grand Prix last year. I say he chose just the right time to do it because he is undoubtedly, as a result of that, the highest paid driver in Grand Prix racing. Ferrari desperately needed somebody good to accompany Jean Alesi, having fired Ivan Capelli. They paid top dollar, as it were, to get Gerhard Berger.
Prost's getting more. Prost gets considerably more, but they keep quite quiet about that, in fact. But certainly, then Prost's deal, to be fair, Murray, was done a long time before that, when there was more money around. But you're quite right in that Gerhard Berger got the last of the big bucks.
Because now there is, I understand, a sort of unofficial limit that the Grand Prix drivers' maximum pay is to be limited to £5 million a year. We should be so lucky. But not many of them get that. $5 million a year, I'm sorry, which makes it even worse for the poor devils, doesn't it? Alain Prost, then, he is the top man in terms of money. He's the top man in terms of the race at the moment, and he's only got laps 69, 70, 71 and 72 to do here at Kyalami. So 4 more 2.65 mile laps after what will be, if he finishes where he is, and I'm always very careful about not saying anybody's going to win the race, because you never know until they see the checkered flag, but it would be a quite incredible return to Grand Prix racing after having been out for the whole of 1992. He kept himself very fit indeed, primarily. Oh, hello, there's a great flash of lightning overhead as I say that. Prost has kept himself very fit indeed, primarily by cycling anywhere, everywhere, up the mountains and down again. But fitness is one thing, race experience is quite another. And when he came back to testing, he found that the first thing that always tends to go when you stop racing a car, your neck muscles, had gone in his case, and he had to work very hard to build them up again. I bet he's glad he's persevered. He's on lap 70 now. Patrick Head is going to be delighted. That is the technical director of the Williams team, who shares responsibility with Frank Williams himself for running what is one of the most successful Grand Prix teams of all time, and who won the Constructors' World Championship by an enormous margin last year. They were 65 points ahead of McLaren, who finished in second place, thanks to those 10 victories. Well, I don't know if you can see the lightning, but it's really flashing in front of the box here. It's getting blacker and blacker, but Alain Prost now still on his 70th lap, which he's very soon to finish, with then only... Well, you can see the skies up above. With only 6 or 7 miles to go, could afford to back right off and really tiptoe round. You saw the car step slightly out of line there, active suspension notwithstanding. And that's another of the things that Alain Prost has had to learn to master, because he didn't have active suspension in Ferrari when he drove for them in 1991, and which Gerhard Berger, going through the picture, does there. And Prost is now on his 71st lap. And it is, we've just had a message from Jonathan Palmer in the pits that it is beginning to rain. And in the immortal words of Jackie Stewart, I can see a few wee spots of rain myself on the track. And that's the helicopter picture, and you can see that it is looking very, very unpleasant indeed in weather terms around Kyalami, between us and the city of gold, Johannesburg. And you can see now the spray coming up from the tyres as Alain Prost dives inside Gerhard Berger. But very soon, the Frenchman will be starting his last lap to win, I think, I hope. Well, you can see the rain on the screen now. It is starting to come down very hard indeed. Prost slows down. Gerhard Berger closes right up on him. And behind Gerhard Berger is Derek Warwick. Well, now this is starting to get very exciting for the race. Derek Warwick tries to pass Berger, but don't get too excited about it, because he's 2 laps behind the Austrian in the Ferrari. But you're looking at the first man now, the 5th man now, and the 6th man now. That's Alain Prost, Derek Warwick and Gerhard Berger in respectively Williams, Footwork and Ferrari. And Alain Prost is going to crest the rise. He goes over the line, and he is now on his 72nd and last potentially victorious lap.
Yes, well, he can certainly afford to tiptoe right round. I think that's the drive-round circuit, and the rain is really tipping down there, but we're on the last lap. Prost, the secret when riding on slick tyres in these conditions is to change right down in the gearbox. It's the only way a driver can really know that he's going slowly enough. But Prost, with all his experience, you know, the wisdom is, and there's the lightning flicking across the screen, and the clever way to do it is to put the car right down into first gear. And that looks pretty unpleasant, but luckily they haven't got long.
Well, just look at it. Who would have thought that this was going to happen yesterday and the day before, when we had the most marvellous weather and nothing like this? But it's only a few yards now for Prost. Let's hope he doesn't do anything daft, but he's most unlikely to with all his experience. He will stay behind JJ Leto and Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick is going to finish in the pits. In the points. Hopefully not in the pits, but there's Berger. Berger is out. Gerhard Berger goes off.
And Leto, I think, is challenging Warwick for his, well, now 5th place.
Oh, my goodness. Prost looks like winning second. Senna looks like finishing second. They're both a lap ahead of Mark Blundell, who is in 3rd place. And Warwick is still staying ahead of Leto as Prost tiptoes out of the last corner of the South African Grand Prix and wins it.
And I think Leto just pipped, in a real photo finish, pipped Warwick on the line for 5th place. But it was difficult to see from the angle we were looking at.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out in my mind how it will go in terms of laps, because Alain Prost had not actually finished the race when Leto and Warwick went across the line. But anyway, here is Ayrton Senna, and there is a very happy Williams garage with Frank Williams himself, knowing that one of his cars has won the South African Grand Prix. A real nail-biter for the first 30 or so laps until Alain Prost got past. Ayrton Senna is coasting home now. He still hasn't finished, actually. Mark Blundell has, because he's a lap adrift, and is in 3rd position.
Yes, and in fact, Warwick, you're quite right, Murray. Whoops, and there goes Derek Warwick, because, of course, he is still racing, and he was, or was still racing. And, of course, did he cross the line just now? We'll register him and just lose one more lap, but that certainly hands the place to JJ Leto.
Ayrton Senna crossing the line probably slower than he's ever crossed it before, but he should worry, because in the process he finishes in 2nd place. The South African Grand Prix undeniably won by Alain Prost in his Williams Renault on his Grand Prix return, as the desperately unfortunate Derek Warwick climbs out of his footwork Mugen. In 2nd position is Ayrton Senna, and in 3rd place, as a very despondent, broken-hearted, I suspect, Derek Warwick walks away from the scene of his crash. Mark Blundell finishes 3rd for Ligier. Ayrton Senna collects, as he so very often does, a Brazilian flag. Christian Fittipaldi has finished in 4th position. Sauber has finished in the points at his very first Grand Prix in the hands of JJ Leto. Here is a replay of Derek Warwick losing his car, and a sure 5th position, well, not a sure position, a very likely 5th position, and if it hadn't been 5th, it certainly would have been 6th, as he goes across the wet track on his slick, no-grip tyres, sails across the gravel, over the grass, into the tyre wall. JJ Leto finishes in 6th position in the Sauber, and Berger out, and Derek Warwick out.
Of a racer. What can be read, I guess, looking at some of the looks that you see coming out of those visors as well. What an incident-packed race, first time out, AJ. I mean, well, I didn't think we were going to have too many finishes, but even though disappointing a lot of cars went out, I guess potential is there this year to see some pretty good close racing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the race looked like it was going to have a lot of promise at the beginning, and then I think it got, quite frankly, a bit boring, a bit of a procession. But it does bode very well for the future, because I think Sauber look fantastic. I mean, they've only just scratched the surface. The McLaren team have a lot of work to do. And I think that it does bode very well for the next race. I think we're going to see a lot of teams now putting into practice what they've learned from this race, and I think it bodes very well for a good, close season.
Will Senna stay with McLaren?
Hard to say. Beaten by 56 seconds, I don't know. He might do a runner. I don't know. I think he'll probably go back and have a bit of a talk now and just see what engines are available to the team, what they've got in the pipeline for development, and how much testing. I really don't know. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and say yes or no, definitely.
No. It'll be interesting, though, won't it?
Yep.
All right, well, let's have a look now as the winners are up on the podium. There he is, Ayrton Senna. I mean, the big question mark is whether he will stay with McLaren. He vowed if he couldn't be competitive, he wouldn't hang around. Alain Prost, a triumphant return for him. Mark Blundell, first time on the podium ever. Fantastic result.
Mark Blundell is a fantastic driver. I mean, I saw him a couple of years ago when he was in the Brabham team with Brundle, and I rated him very highly indeed. All right, well, there's the results. You can see Alain Prost out of retirement after a year. First up winner in the Williams, 10 points for them. Ayrton Senna, fantastic comeback for him, I guess, after 3 months of doing nothing on the beach in Brazil. Mark Blundell, great effort for him. And Christian Fittipaldi, continues to impress. JJ Leto in that Sauber, and Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari.
Some unfamiliar names there, but that can only be a good thing for Formula One, as AJ has already said. Well, we had a big bonus tonight, having Mario Andretti, a former champion, of course, 1976 in the Lotus, that was right, wasn't it? 78. In the Lotus, of course, and Nigel Mansell, the current world champion, joining us at the Marriott Hotel. We thank the Marriott Hotel for their help in setting it up in their presidential suite. Well, both of the fellows have been doing a lot of travelling. They left the room around about half an hour ago, but before they did leave, they had a talk to our Barry Sheen, got his or their thoughts on what they saw in the first of the Formula One races tonight. So let's go back to the Marriott Hotel in Surfers Paradise. Barry Sheen talking with Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti.
Thanks a lot, Daryl. Well, we've been entertained by the Formula One race, and next weekend it's your chance at the FAI IndyCar Grand Prix. You're looking forward to it?
Absolutely. I mean, mixed emotions, but I couldn't wish for a better teammate than Mario, and to be starting off the season in Australia I think is great. The only thing is I've finished the season in Australia for the last 8 years, so to be here starting the season is a little bit different.
What was it like first getting in an Indy car? Was it a bit of a culture shock by comparison to Formula One?
No, I mean, I've got to take my hat off to everybody who's been in IndyCar racing all these years, because, I mean, it's more or less like a Formula One car. I mean, yes, there are differences. The biggest difference, I think, is 500 pounds heavier, but, I mean, everything else is just like a Formula One car. And the engine, especially, is very strong.
And what about when you first drove on the oval? Was it sort of awe-inspiring?
Well, that's a different science. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, how Mario has done, was it 30-something Indianapolis? I mean, there's no way. I mean, I'm going to emulate that. I'm just grateful to be with such a good team as the Newman Haas team, and to have Mario setting up the car, because it's a big, big difference to this kind of racing we're watching now.
Have you been helping him a lot then, Mario?
Not really. No, actually, he's been pretty much on his own. We've done some separate testing, and he obviously is getting a good help from the engineer that he has, that really up on things. And as he says, I think we've been lucky. We've had some good setups. The cars are pretty much in the ballpark, and it's a matter of adjusting it to each driver's pleasure, if you will, and go from there. But things are not perfect, but I think they're good. And the cars at this point, I think we have a better car than last year. We have definite improvements in the engine area. So I think we're really as ready as you could hope to be to start the season, I think.
Was everybody pretty surprised at how quick Nigel adapted to it?
I wasn't. If anyone else was, I don't know. I don't. But you know, obviously, for anyone that breaks in a new series, you always have your doubts. You know, whether they're going to grasp the situation quickly or not. But I'm not surprised at all. In fact, I said that from the beginning that I didn't think he'd have any problem at all adjusting.
You've had a look at the circuit. What do you think of it, Nigel?
I think it's great. I think, you know, the organisation up here is second to none, and I think the circuit's very, very interesting, and I just can't wait, really, especially watching this race here today, to sort of get at it ourselves next week.
So with all the help that Mario's given you, you're going to cut him any slack on the weekend?
I'll tell you what. We'll be a good team.
Better.
Well, let's hope
the old man needs it.
Oh, don't be like that. Let's hope it's good anyway. All right, Dazzle, back to you.
Good on you, Baz. Well, it was really nice of the guys to sit in like that. I mean, there's been a lot of travelling, a lot of setting up, and Nigel, of course, has had so many press conferences since he got in the country. He really wants to get down and start racing. I really appreciate that. It was great.
Yeah, it would appear that he's already getting into the American mode of making himself more available, which the Indy drivers do. I mean, it's all to their credit. I mean, they do make themselves extremely available, as we have found over the last couple of years when we've been up there covering the Indy race. And it would appear now that Nigel's taken a leaf out of their book, which is good.
Well, that's a good thing, and thanks to the Marriott Hotel once again in Surfers Paradise. A lot of work had to go into that, and to provide the presidential suite as you did, we really appreciate that. Okay, as we've said so many times, the big sports just keep coming on here at Nine's Wide World of Sports. We move to Brazil for the next Grand Prix. That's live coverage, 3 a.m. on Monday the 25th of March, but check your local guides for that. Tuesday morning at 4 a.m, Ian Chappelli back again. We'll be here to host live coverage of the Lipton Players Championship from Florida. Good tennis that. Next week, of course, full of live tennis action. And starting out next Friday, our coverage begins of the 93 FIA Indy Gold Coast Grand Prix. So lots of great sports coming your way right here on Nine's Wide World of Sports. And, of course, we've got the Australian Surf Lifesaving Championships. They're coming out of Surfers Paradise, and the 500cc bikes just a couple of weeks away out of Eastern Creek. So we'll keep you entertained. So, AJ, well done again today. Congratulations. It's great to see you back on the winner's podium, as they say.
Hey, it's good to be there.
Yeah, I know. You've been smiling like a Cheshire cat the entire night. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage. Don't forget some big ones coming right around the corner, and we'll all be back on the Gold Coast. We're leaving on Tuesday. We've got a big week to bring you there, and a weekend next weekend that you're really going to enjoy. See you next time round on Nine's Wide World of Sports.